Hello everyone, this is the Lyceum podcast. I'm your host, Riyad Hacib, back again with another great discussion with my pupils. And today, I'm really excited for this episode. It's Mr. Mckenzie, Paul Mckenzie, a great friend of mine, a family friend, super interesting guy. I'm not going to take the floor away from him too much, but so dance away and introduce yourself.
Oh, wow, I've got to do my own introduction. What's that kind of podcast show?
I can never do it for you, trust me.
Okay, how do you introduce yourself? As you said, interesting guy. I like to remain interesting. I also like my perspective on life. I think it serves me well. I think that's why I'm in this podcast today, is because I have some interesting perspectives on life and what life's all about. Mm-hmm. And I like to share my views. So I'm a very opinionated person. I don't let society hold back my norms, because I've got a different set of values and belief systems about how I think society should run. Mm-hmm. So I always welcome an opportunity to turn up to a podcast and share those views.
Beautifully said. And I think it's important to express your ideas. And I think one of them ways you can do it is via podcasts, writing, books. However, this guy likes to express his perspectives through cinema and productions. And right now he's got something coming out called Sick. Do you want to run us through that a little bit?
Oh, Sick. Yeah.
Really
got a
interesting.
screening of a film. Shall I tell you about how we made the film?
Talk to us.
All right. Okay. So, because I'm a youth worker as well at heart, I've always done youth work. But this particular half term, we found 10 young people and decided to embark on a film project, because I make films, so why not use film? Embark on a film project that could be used as an awareness tool, as a teaching resource, and as something that's going to go on to win an award. So I remember approaching these young people, and they was like, no, this is impossible, let's make a film about knife crime and gangs and stuff. And I said, no, think about it. Let's think about it. Let's make something that will last forever. And so we made a film called Sick, which is about mental health in young people. An amazing cast. I mean, one of the actors in particular, Ellis Witter, who will be at the screening, I think he's just a phenomenal young actor.
He's brilliant.
And he was able to portray the whole cycle of mental health going wrong. You know, for his life, it was all going wrong. So we made this in 2 weeks with no budget, and the young people were amazed. And then we screened it in Tottenham 2 weeks later. And and for these young people, I don't think you might not understand where I'm going with this, but for them it was like, this is impossible. But for me, it's possible. So we screened it in Tottenham, sold out the entire community centre, raised about £750, which we used to buy them a new camera to continue their work. The film didn't end there. It also went on to be screened in the National Gallery in Black History Month, which is phenomenal. And they were able to attend a Q&A.
Phenomenal.
Not only that, it's since won 4 awards.
4 awards?
Yeah, the last award.
No, I was aware that you won a couple, but I wasn't aware it was 4.
There's 4. The last one is the International, get this,
Okay.
International London Film Award.
Speak it. Be proud of your achievements.
Yeah. So
why? If you know what, it's interesting you say it with so much confidence. I think it's important. Like if you're trying to achieve something, or you have achieved, it's good to indulge in it a little bit, because you work so hard, get something out of it, and it's not always like a party, but that self-indulgence really does go far, I say.
And also, it's about, you know, people say I'm one of the most humble men they've ever met. But sometimes you're absolutely right. Sometimes it is about celebrating
For sure.
what you do, because if you don't celebrate it, why should others?
And it's kind of like when you're going on a long drive and you see like a nice view. When you're driving so fast, you kind of ignore the view. And when you stop, get out of the car and look outside, it's kind of like when you stop working so hard to kind of look at the atmosphere around you, like, wow, like it's quite beautiful from up here. I never really stopped and stood. And that's kind of indulgence in a way too, right? But a healthy indulgence, I would argue.
It's kind of a metaphor for life.
I've actually got a question for you. It's interesting that, coming from your position, how do you transfer your imagination or a concept you have into other people's minds? If you're going to come to someone with a project or an idea, how do you do your ideas justice?
That's a really interesting question, because the way my creativity works is almost spur of the moment. It's
spontaneous
almost,
in a sense.
yeah, it's almost
Wow.
getting a blank canvas, and then as you splash the paint,
Just paint on it.
you start, you start seeing the image. It's a bit like that with film. As you splash,
Is it like an
or press
intuition? You have
record,
like a faith in intuition?
yeah, it's kind of like you
yeah.
know what you want generally, but the specifics. I'm not really a specific person, you know, and so the specifics happen afterwards.
So you find a lot of production with being unstructured in a way.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would say the same as well. Like when I was like, I love writing, and I felt like when I was too structured, I realized that my creativity was structured too, and creativity is one of the most, what's the word?
well, it's fluent.
Fluent.
You let it flow, and
you let it flow, and
it's like even this podcast. What you'll notice is I'm adjusting it as we go along. And
Yeah,
for
yeah,
the people
yeah.
watching this podcast,
it's true. You do adjust.
Yeah.
You grow into
this
it.
is a
Yeah,
metaphor for life. If you're ever in a situation, don't just ride it through. Always adjust that situation.
Adjust.
Don't. And if it looks like an error,
Yeah.
explain what you're doing.
Yeah, and if it looks like an error and you take it too personal, it's not as simple as, because it takes some effort, but you have to change your interpretation.
There you go.
And I am a strong believer that life is nothing but interpretation. Every situation is a room for a rehash, a reworking, a restructuring of a narrative you see. And if you're following, like for example, if your creativity is not working out, that's your interpretation is not working out.
Right.
You know, you have to. You get what I mean? You have to.
And then, but it's almost like if you widen that a bit, because it's your interpretation of your creation, can it be wrong?
Very subjective.
So it can't. So if you go from that frame of mind, it can be wrong as a generalization in the wider world.
It's true.
But it can never be wrong as your creation. So you can always refine it to become better.
If people
and
find
better.
it ugly,
Yeah.
can it be wrong?
You tell me.
Like, because I've been trying to battle with this concept lately, and it's like beauty versus ugly. And
wow.
to me, beauty is one of those, is a truth to me. It's like when you know something to be beautiful, you don't really question it. It feels good, it feels right, it feels virtuous, it feels complete. But the ugly, or the ugly, not ugly, you know, like you ugly, like the ugly.
That's
things that
true.
bring out the immoral side, or like tragedies are ugly plays because it ends in death, it ends in not good circumstances. And I'm trying to relate this now, because it's like when you see things that are ugly, it's kind of, is it wrong in a sense? And beauty is good, or?
Another interesting question. Right, I'll talk about this from my model of the world.
Yeah.
Because I've seen beautiful destruct itself.
Decadence.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah, because of its beauty.
Beauty is very, very, very
And
vulnerable.
at the same time, I've seen people with ugly spirits become beautiful souls.
Do you know what's interesting? Do you feel like then, if you live like an ugly life, your beauty shows that?
More like a laboured, tortured life.
Yeah, laboured.
Do you know? I'm going to agree with you on that one, because because to me, and I think the time we're living in now, beauty is so superficial. It's almost like
it's a marketing weapon.
Yeah, if you're not beautiful enough, you can get a filter.
That is, it's
And
crazy.
I think there are. If you look at that metaphor for life, you know what, in our personal lives, what do we continue to filter every day? We filter. And we're not showing our true ugliness or beauty anyway. So the interpretation of what is beautiful and what is ugly depends on the person that's scrolling through your page. And when it's subjective like that, it becomes a real question. So to find real beauty within yourself, do you stop subjecting your image to filters?
That's a really interesting point.
Yeah. Or do you stop waiting for people to say that you're the interpretation of beauty, and then you just know it within yourself?
I think you have to strike the perfect. It's because I feel like beauty, as you say, is one of them words that's been like washed in a way. It's lost all significance.
Yeah,
it's like
gone.
if you take the word beauty and assume it's like a building, it's crumbling, it's got deterioration.
Masonry goes,
the
it
frescoes
needs
are peeling off the wall.
Yeah.
So I think society is probably in search of new words to describe old feelings of beauty.
There you go.
And I don't know, beauty's.
Is AI beautiful? Some would say it is.
That is such a... Now we can go so many directions right now.
But
wow.
some would say it is. It's like...
But I think, end of the day, beauty is one of the most underrated aspects of life. And it's not just beauty as in the superficial, what you look like or what you dress like. I think the feeling of beauty, seeing, witnessing, being in awe. When we look at nature, I think beauty and the sublime are together. And beauty is that feeling of overwhelming. It's like, I know it's beautiful and there's nothing I can deny. It's like beauty holds you hostage in a way. And I think...
You're getting there.
When in society you start making beauty a club to be a part of,
right,
you really take away that overwhelming feeling of something natural, you know?
And then it becomes an interpretation of beauty.
Yeah, or a beauty standard. There is no beauty standard.
Do you know what word I like?
Talk to me.
So you have, yes, you can live a beautiful life, and then you could also live the purest life you can.
And that's beautiful.
And that's beautiful. Have you ever met somebody who's so pure?
Pure, yeah, it's beautiful.
It's no matter how they look, all you can see is beauty. It's the only thing that they emit.
You know what? It's actually
beauty.
interesting. Beauty actually, I've never thought of that till you said that. Beauty and innocence always kind of come
that's why
together.
very close.
They're very close together. Innocence,
which is why they can destroy each
other. You got
other
a beautiful
very
child.
quickly.
Because innocence is a blank canvas.
There you go.
And you can paint on top of innocence. You know, you can turn many different ways.
And you can paint a picture that is so dark.
But let me ask you a question then.
Yeah.
Why do we call children innocent?
Because we want them to. The presupposition of them being a child presupposes that they should be innocent because they don't know the dangers or the dark side of the world. So we presuppose that my child is innocent. And I'll tell you why my opinion on this has changed so rapidly is because we have a lot of, I go and visit children in prison.
Oh, wow.
And those children in prison are in their purest form of behavior only because of the fact that they're in prison, because they were caught behaving in a way that was impure. And when you go and speak to their parents, they can't understand it because the only thing you see of your child is that the presupposition of pureness. And that's all you want.
And you want to kind of
you
reclaim that back. Yeah.
So you have these parents all trying to paint this back to the canvas.
Back to the canvas.
It's to rub off all the dark bits and start using brighter colours.
Romanticize in a sense.
Romanticize.
Do you think parents, why do you think do you think it's important for a parent at some point to stop romanticizing their child?
100%.
And where do you think, is it a one size fits all? Is it subjective? Or in your experience, where would you say? Because you're way ahead of me in this certain category.
I think
I admit my humble humility.
He is good. Don't let him kid you. Don't let him kid you. He is good. As a parent, I think one of the core belief systems is that you will produce a remarkable child who will contribute to the world in a remarkable way. And so you invest that time in that child. But then behaviors start to change your belief system when you start seeing that maybe
your child is flawed.
Maybe your child is not as perfect as you thought.
Wow. Interesting you say that, because growing up, I used to feel like I always used to be scared of my mum's opinion.
There you go.
Why? Because I was breaking her innocent, perfect view of me.
There you go.
Like when my teacher was like, I'm calling your mum, I'm like, oh no, she thinks I'm perfect. I'm trying to be perfect still. And what I've noticed growing up, so I'm like 23 now, and I notice a lot of people from school or guys my age still, that still latch on to their parents.
Absolutely.
Still. And I'm not one to say you shouldn't do that, but I think at some point it's important to break away and become your own person and not still try to fit your parents' ideals. Because unfortunately, at some point, your parents are not going to be here forever. So you don't want to start your life after the parents have gone. You want to start it from there. And I think one of the biggest challenges is now you had to live to your parents' standard. And I really strongly believe that when you get to an adult age, you need to start flipping that script. And I mean, that's subjective because some people got different flaws, different things going on. But I could just speak from my own experience. Luckily, I had a mum that was very, I'll tell you what's wrong, but if you still mess up, I'm still going to let you mess up. And you learn the hard way.
You learn the hard way.
But she never had like her claws in me, you know? And I think that was really refreshing, because I look at some other people and their parents have got claws into them. And I'm like, oh.
And it becomes painful.
It does.
Because, you know, what are the two things, fight or flight, isn't it? Pain or pleasure, right?
Or pleasure, yeah.
So if you are a young adult and you still hold on to your parents' values, there's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Because that saves many a life.
Saves many.
However, you need to become your own superhero. So you need to go out into the world and test, because parents get it wrong sometimes.
They do. And they're human. They're just normal people.
And we say, oh, my parent must be right.
Must be right.
But look at how many parents have got it wrong.
So, and like, for example, you're right. Because when you go out and you see X, Y, and Z acting in public, you sit there and you can go, wow, that is someone's mum. Or someone's dad, or you can have a conversation with someone in public.
Child.
Or someone's child. Yeah, that's a good point.
An adult who is still somebody's child. Think about it.
It's so easy to slip over that, isn't it? It actually is. I don't know. Damn.
It's an interesting topic, you see. This is not a lot of podcasts will unpack it. They won't unpack it.
But my experiences are only taking me so far as a parent. But all I can, I'm not a parent yet, but I can definitely say in my own life, the importance of having a father is
100%.
So when I was really young, I'll just say it, I don't mind. I mean, I'm on a podcast, so I might as well start expressing my life, you know? So I lost my dad when I was really young. I was like 13. I know there's obviously way more tragic things out there, but I would say pain is pain, loss is loss. And my father was like my superhero at the time. He was a man, he had his flaws, he was a defeated guy, but you know, I have to romanticize him, because that's the only way I could do his legacy any justice. What's the point of trying to denounce the guy? He had his flaws, but he was still my father. It's my story, he's my Zeus in a way, you know? So why should I get mad at that? So I was 13 when I lost him. And at the first 7 years, you feel numb to it. Like you don't really reflect or feel the presence gone till you become a man. And that's when I realized a man needs a man. A boy needs a mum. My man needs a dad.
Man needs a man.
Yeah. So, but growing up, like I always try to find my dad in other people, you know? Like I see a lot of people who don't have their dads or single parents. They try to find it in people around them. I used to look at people around me and be like, yeah, there's no one around me that it could ever match up to the ideal of the perfect dad. So I looked at history in a way. So I started looking at like Napoleon, Caesar.
Was that to find another superhero?
To find another father in a way. So like I used to like read Plato and all these guys. I'd be like, yeah, like if I can merge all these guys together, they could be my dad in a way. But that only takes you so far. Because what happens is they're not here. And there is something so important.
They disappoint you.
They disappoint me. As much beauty as these like great men give me, there's still someone missing underneath all of it. You're like, I wish my dad was here. And I know my dad isn't as clever as Nietzsche. He's not as brave as Napoleon. He's not as strategic as Julius Caesar. But
he was there, right?
I just want to ask my dad, like when he was young.
No, it's not really.
Was it really this hard being 23? Is it
simple questions like that? Is she the right girl for me?
Is she the right girl? Like, am I doing right? Yeah. Like, did you feel what I felt?
And it's not a Plato moment.
It's not a Plato moment.
He's sat in the chair with his slippers on. And he tells you.
It's so frustrating growing up as well, like in this generation where we attack the man now. Yeah. Because when you attack the man, you attack fathers. And fathers are one half of society and mothers are the other half. And if we're going to protect and put our women on a pedestal, you must absolutely do the same. Because you can't have a society without fathers and mothers. Or mothers with no fathers or fathers with no mothers. So if you're going to attack men, watch who you're coming for, because a father, in my experience, is needed. Because trust me,
100%.
You have to. I'm sure people watching this who could probably relate will know the feeling of having a father, and they're great people. Like honestly, when I'm out in public sometimes, and I see like like kids walking with their dad, like I just get happy watching that. You know, I'm like, I remember that feeling. Yeah. But you hold on to moments in life. You don't, like, this is how I see it. Yeah, I know I'm going on a little bit here.
No, go for it. Because and I just before you go into that, there is one phrase I'm going to impart. Yeah, you'll remember this. We are but our memories.
We are but. That's so true.
That's all we are.
So true.
That's all we are.
And let me add an image on top of that.
Yeah.
So like I see my life, my life. I can't even really talk about myself. I'm starting to notice I've got such a habit of talking about everyone else, but I don't really forget to talk about how I see things. I guess I see life as like a gallery, like an art gallery. Like imagine the Louvre. That's inside of myself right now. And each moment, each memory, for good or for worse, for beautiful or the ugly, I put it in a canvas and I put it inside my Louvre, inside my head. And when I'm sitting there like a bit tipsy, and you sit there and you look at the moon, you're like, I'm walking through my gallery again. And I wish and I think I can't wait to find a wife or a girlfriend where I can
share that gallery.
We sit here together and we look and I'm like, and we're both talking and she's like,
she's got her gallery.
Walking through the east wing of my education, or the west wing of Riyad's traveling moments, or the north, and we come to the Mona Lisa, and that's my biggest achievement. But the Mona Lisa right now in my gallery is still absent. I haven't got there yet.
That's because she doesn't exist yet until you create her
What do you think of so what do you think of I know it's a bit of a change of topic, but talk about art. When it comes to let's say cinema and film,
right,
where would you say that ranks as an art form?
I would say cinema and film, because you remember a high percentage of the human race is quite visual.
For sure.
They're visual. That's how they learn. They learn through seeing. So I think, you have reading, you have listening to, which is why podcasts now are video and audio.
That's true.
Because what it does is it sorts out both audiences, the listening and the visual. The more senses
you bring in,
the more immersive it becomes.
Makes sense.
So in the context of film, I think it plays an important part in painting those pictures. That because if you try and sit there and imagine something that you haven't seen, it's very difficult to store that. And so film plays a massive part in creating those galleries. Okay. Those snapshots of life, the similarities between the real world and the perceived world are more often than not brought together in film. Yeah,
I get it. It's bringing the abstract into reality.
reality.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Which is why films are so immersive. Which is why they're striving for films to, you got 3D for all sorts. The more immersed you are in a film, and it goes back to the two brains we have. So we have the conscious mind and the unconscious mind, and so the conscious mind knows that it's a bullshit film.
Literally, yeah.
But the unconscious mind cannot differentiate between
what's interesting?
What's real and what's fake. So it accepts everything as real.
On that point, when you watch a film, and I realize maybe we're listening, we're hearing, we've got a lot of senses engaged. We're in a dark room, crunching, eating. So a lot of our senses,
all of it.
But that's even more reason why we can detach from the film. We can go on our phone because our ears are hearing it, or we can look at it and talk. So we're not sometimes. Too much senses can actually be a detachment in a way.
Yeah, which is why you filter most of your conscious mind filters most of what comes.
And what I'm trying to get to, exactly. And let's compare that to a book. A book holds you hostage. You can't do anything. You try and drink a coffee. You have to literally put the book down and drink on your phone. That's what I'm saying. A book is you submit to it. It's so intimate. It's almost like it pulls you in, and I think that's why I would still class the book as the most. But
that's probably because you're, and I know this about you, that your learning style is auditory. So you're a very auditory person. So what you read goes in, but for a large percentage of the human race are visual, and so they find it really difficult to do that whole thing about immersing in a book. Some people listen to books, and it's easier for them because I think they're what's called auditory internal.
I've heard
So stick a pair of headphones on, run the book. They learn every word of it. Put the real book in front of them. It's a challenge. Show the film version. Got it straight away.
Yeah, it's true.
And so all of our senses, and I think film just tries its hardest to cover as many of those senses as possible.
I'm sure someone out there has to relate to this feeling, yeah? Talk about film. It captures the imagination, but I feel like those who have, look at Star Wars fan, Lord of the Ring fans, anime fans, like think about subcultures in cinema that require intense imagination.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Transformers, etc., Avengers, Marvel, DC, and they always so happen to have the most disappointed fans. Because not all of it lives up to their imagination. In their head, what they want to watch is so vivid in their mind. I want to see this and this. When they watch it, no matter what they watch, is always going to be a disappointment because the imagination roars so much fire and all they're getting is a whiff of smoke on the screen, you know? And that's what I feel when I watch Star Wars the last three, because in my head I thought Anakin was going to come back as a ghost.
Have you read Star Wars?
I've read the novels, but it's not like watching an actual saber fight, man.
No, but if you read... Because I used to watch a lot of Stephen King films, like horror films. But if you read the book,
Shining for the first time last week.
But if you read the book and watch the film,
it's like
it marries the two.
Marriage,
yeah, and then you go, oh, that's the bit in the book when. So there are people that read super. I used to collect comics.
Like
I used to collect comics.
But cinema, isn't cinema like a screenwriter will adapt the book into how he wants and then puts it into the film? Like, correct me if I'm wrong.
I think it used to be like that.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's like that no more. I think you've got so many filmmakers now.
Let's go on to that comic book, what you're talking about. Isn't it how comic books have essentially taken over all literature now? It's amazing. Like, it's not a bad thing. It just shows the evolution of society, I think.
I think,
you lose
the
out
evolution
on the
of society is losing out on the intimacy, also losing out on, I mean, come on, be honest, we live in a society now where if you send somebody a video that's over 1.3 minutes.
Or a voice note.
Oh my God, he sent a voice note that was 4 minutes.
I'm putting on WhatsApp 2 times speed.
You see what I mean? So our attention span's gone. So that's what the challenge is. It's how do you maintain, and a really great book to read is called Deep Work. Deep Work. Get the book, right? Write it down. Deep Work. And it teaches you how to focus in a society that is so confusing. You know, where it's so manipulated with everything else. It's social media, it's everything.
You know the word we spoke about earlier, decadence.
Decadence.
And too much over the top. I think the confusement of today's society is because we're decadent in our perspectives. Because every single perspective must be respected, we've allowed all perspectives
to be respected,
to rise to the surface. And now our perspectives looks like an ocean of plastic bottles now. It's just like...
But what does that breed? What does that breed as a society?
It breeds mediocrity, and it breeds, for sure, mediocrity, and I'll let you take it from here.
So what it does is it fragments everything.
Good point.
So you have a sea of bottles with all different labels.
It's like a mosaic.
Like a mosaic.
Yeah, literally.
So every bottle, it's got its own version of water in it, and it's
and if you try and push that bottle to the bottom, my God, it will rise back to the top.
Yeah, not only that, you'll be taken to court. You'll be so. What we do is we
decadence of perspectives.
So decadence has now effectively left the building.
Essentially,
for a society that would prefer a quick fix, and they would prefer if everything looked as if it had a filter on it.
An example as well is that if you look at today, we have, you're way more versed than me on this, but we have way more mental disorders on the rise, mental health, psychological disorders, X, Y, Z, X, Y. And the more concepts you get in society, it shows the more simplification societies, it's more simplified societies come in. Because bigger concepts require bigger thinking. Smaller concepts require what?
Bigger thinking.
I would argue different. Smaller concept, less thinking.
Right, let's argue that then.
Cool,
so we know that we can't stand a video that's 1.3 minutes.
Okay.
So in that 1.3 minutes, you have to put every bit of information in that 1.5 minutes. Okay. That's how it is. Yeah. So in order to understand something now, you've already limited yourself to your own internal time span. So now you, as a human, start chunking down what it takes to learn something. Yeah, or what it takes to So you've now set your clock, your internal clock, and I'm going to go out there and say this because there's two ways of that time is managed on this globe. And, one is Western, the Western version of it, and one is called the Arabic.
Okay.
Now, in the Arabic society, which covers most of the Arabic states and the Caribbean, they're very relaxed. So if I'm going to meet you today to do a podcast, I don't need to tell you the time. I'm going to be there. In the Western world, like this podcast, it's like, right, we need to start, we need to hit the button, and it's very industrial.
Mechanical.
Time is very industrial. And so when you have a society like that and then you have a reduction in the attention span, all of a sudden now, so you're probably the last.
With anything you're saying,
you're probably the last of that generation, right? But the generation coming after you will need to learn something in 4 minutes max.
I actually agree. And the generation I come from, so I'm 99.
Yeah.
Anyone that's born, I say 95, I don't know, I'm not going to put this, no, but you get what I mean. If you're from this kind of era, like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, My Wife and Kids, and Nickelodeon, Jetix.
See the values they had in those.
We come from a weird time. We are a transition generation.
Absolutely.
We remember a generation before social media. We remember what life was like before, because I certainly do. And I remember it forming and changing. So I have like a bit of a prediction. I reckon like a lot of thinkers are going to come from my generation, because
100%.
they had a nice spectrum of immersiveness
100%.
Before and after. And those who pay closer attention can see the dominoes falling from social media. Anyway, that's a different point.
But what I'm saying, falling. I love that.
To go back to your point though, about what we was talking about, what I was talking about bigger concepts is this. If you were to talk to someone now and say, what's wrong? They say, I've got this disorder. That's a small concept. It's because
there's so many disorders, right?
A world of war and chaos into 1-2 words. This is not right for me, Like where's the intimacy, the fleshing out of thoughts, the fleshing out of ideas? You know what, Paul? I don't have a disorder. Right now I'm going through all of this, and this is going on. What's happened to the art of conversation instead of reducing it down to small concepts? Let's take chaotic feelings and see if they can't fit into the bigger concepts of things. And I know I'm talking very abstractly here.
That's okay.
Then they must not have some value of that much importance if it can't fit into the big concepts.
See, you did what's called a complex equivalence there.
Okay,
so you answered your own question.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I think, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, it's okay. You analysed and answered your own question. I think a lot more people need that skill, because that's how you learn. You look at society and you say, is it like this? No, it's not. Therefore, it must be this. And then I know you already, as you go through your day, you're constantly distorting, generalizing, deleting. There's these filters going bang, 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 until you get some kind of resolution to what this could be, or why does this person act like this? And it's important. So the way your mind works, you don't want it to stop.
I don't want it to stop.
Because once it stops,
it means I've hung my hat on a concept.
No. But it's more important than that. Once it stops, then who's going to call out what your disorder is? Once the way you think stops,
and you lose all sense of self-diagnosis. You're right.
Then somebody will say, look, Riyad has got that condition.
Do you know what's interesting? I love philosophy, right? I'm never going to go a podcast episode without mentioning something philosophical, There's a philosopher called Albert Camus, Algerian French philosopher. So shout out to my Algerians, There's a philosopher he does, it's not entirely him, obviously for you philosophy heads, there's always a lineage of ideas, but we're going to sum it up with small concepts, easier to explain, ironically. Okay, but he done absurdism, and cutting all the long story short, life doesn't make no sense. There is no point trying to really work it out, bigger picture. And the most interesting part about all that, he calls it philosophical suicide. Obviously, as we know, suicide for the body is when you kill yourself. The body is terminated.
The physical. Yeah.
So what would philosophical suicide be? So philosophical suicide, he says, is when you get to a point in your life and you hang your hat on one idea to explain life. Because life is a constant battle of trying to become wiser, learn, fall, get back up, fall, get back up, adapt, rehash, change, cook, clean, change,
delete.
Everything, delete, reinstall, delete again, reinstall. This is life. That's why life is absurd. It makes no sense, but it's very It's like a battle. And philosophical suicide is when you go, okay, you get to 25 and you go, you know what?
This is what life is.
Maybe God is the answer. Hang your hat on that, you know? Or maybe money is the answer to everything.
Yeah.
You hang your hat
You
on that
hang
and
your
you
hat.
never decide to see what other pegs you could have hung your hat on. So in other words, he says, you should knock on every door.
Play knock down ginger in life.
Yeah, wow, beautifully said. Knock down ginger.
Down the doors
with
and
ideas.
see who opens.
And if they don't open, don't take it personal. Life is absurd. It makes no sense.
Don't take it personally.
Don't take
They're
it
not
personally.
in.
Life is so difficult.
That's why I love talking to you, because you know I fully understand where you're coming from, and I, you know, in terms of philosophy, I'm that's how I live my life. Is everything is
and
knocking
is
doors.
Not hard. All it is it means the love of wisdom.
Yeah, it's an understanding.
That's all it is. You know,
it's an understanding, and understanding actually that wisdom is listening more than you talk.
2 ears, 1 mouth, right?
Yeah.
The cleanest ratio.
That's how you learn about this planet.
It's
you
true.
listen to it more, and when I say listen, I mean listen to the planet more than you try to interpret the planet to somebody else.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
For an ideal to exist, it doesn't need to be acknowledged by everyone.
No,
It should be acknowledged by you.
It's yours.
And your reflection in the mirror. Like, then it's an ideal, you know?
It's yours.
But do you know what I think, though? And the idea of compassion is so intrinsic. I think everyone is born compassionate. I think it's such a part of the human nature. Why? Because when we have ideals, we want to place them on other people out of compassion.
Because we want pureness, right?
Yeah, and we kind of feel pity, like, oh, look at them, they're in this situation. My ideal is the right ideal. So out of compassion and love, I'm going to insert this onto you. Yeah. And your life will be changed thanks to my ideal. It's messianic, it's compassionate, it's loving, it's religious.
And it's self-indulgent.
Self-indulgent.
Because you know what it is? It's
decadent.
It's the billionaire giving away 1% of his wealth to feel better for having the billions, but at the same time not accepting that he could live on the 1% and change the world with the balance.
Why do you think they don't do that? Because you know that question always confused me. It's like, oh, if you were rich. But one thing I say about talk about billionaires, because I feel like in the younger generation, the most natural thing to do is be so suspicious and it's not even suspicious, and it's not even like I know better, I'm woke. No, you're just envious. It's always envy. Envy is one of the biggest drivers because you want their power. Let's just be real. I want their power.
You want their wealth.
It goes back to a Nietzschean idea that all human history is just a transfer of power to power, power to power, power to power. All freedom is I want power. I want more. And all conservatism is I want to keep my power, you know? Anyway, that's a different example. But what I'm trying to say is when it comes to that, billionaires and secret societies, it's quite clever. It's quite clever. You do this, you do that. You see this a lot of in Asian families, and I know you just see this a lot in Asian families where the uncle could be an economist, the father could be a banker, the mother a writer, the son a financier, or you get the idea. And they all come together and bring their skills together and they build a legacy or a collective within their own. And in society, we do the same with capitalists. One owns this industry, one owns this part of the media, this does that, and they just bring their forces together. I'm not sure if it's corrupt or clever because I don't know. You tell me.
In order to have power, your power could be instant. You could get power instantly, really quickly, bang. True. Yeah. In order to maintain power,
that's a whole
you need a structure. And it's the structure which you just spoke about that they build. So in order to keep power, you can't just, there's a lightning bolt which you caught in the middle of your hand. You can't wrap that in your hand and take it home.
You got to put it in something that can contain it.
Right. There you go. Yeah. So that is just the structure of power. Now, the secret societies, that's all they've ever done is your role is A, my role is B. We're clear. That's it. And that's as simple as it gets to maintain power. Now, if at any time you believe your role should be different, then there's going to be a break in the power structure.
Yeah, for sure. And history will show you that.
History always repeats.
And history shows you a lot. And I don't know why young people don't like history. Like someone the other day said, "Oh, why do we study?"
Because it's scary.
It's scary.
History is scary.
It's like going to a well and looking inside.
Yeah, and actually saying, "Oh, people do shoot each other's heads off in the name of politics."
Wow, my political view once killed millions 100 years ago. Oh, especially
nobody wants to revisit.
You know, at my university, I have like a society, and it's a Marxist, anti-capitalist society, and their whole job is
that's
just
a big one.
It's big, but I've always wanted to join it just to listen, and I don't know where I'm going with this. I just wanted to say it.
No, go for it.
No, I'm just saying, like, it's interesting how they take it and make it so idealistic, so pure, so religious in a way, but history shows you something else. And people go, "Oh, that's in the past." It's not just the past.
Oh, we can't.
There's like, with history, there's always like one string pulling it all together. I guess it's a very linear way of seeing history, but I do think history is very progressive. I think we're always progressing.
It depends on the events.
If we can conserve our knowledge.
It, right? So, yes. so it's like even today's society depend on history. Because that's where most of the learning.
And how would you know? And how would you know? Okay, everyone's a secret historian, and I tell you how. Yeah. Oh, before social media, what does that entail? That's a historical view of your part. That's a historical interpretation. Yeah. Before social media, people used to do this. That is a historical view. Yeah. You know. But
you're gonna have so many. This conversation has got so many wings because, like you said, you're the last generation. Of sitting on the wall.
On the wall, Humpty Dumpty.
So the next generation that precedes you, you may well find yourself becoming a professional lecturer in history, which is not so distant. You might not be talking about 100 years ago, 200 years ago. You might be talking about a decade ago.
It's true.
You might be talking about before AI.
AI is, I know, listen, Mr. Mckenzie here is a technology man. So run off with AI. Let's go there.
AI is interesting.
It's very interesting.
And in fact, I'll tell you how interesting it is. By the time we finish this podcast and process this podcast through one of hundreds of platforms, this podcast would already have been learned by AI. So even my opinion about AI will be recorded somewhere and may come back to haunt me about AI. So when we talk about going forward with AI, we have to understand that we spoke about filters earlier, that the entire globe is now one big filter.
It is, in a sense.
And everything you say, do, smell, eat, poo out is now part of a bigger learning machine. And you know what amazes me is how this word AI in the last 8 months has attached itself to almost everything. Think about a year ago. You heard ChatGPT, since that came in, and these things take years to create. Trust me on this, yeah? All of a sudden now, everything you do can be run through a AI source. And so going forward with AI, and I'm not sure how long we have to be able to have these conversations without part of it being deleted because a greater thing didn't agree with it. You know, we have to relish the fact that maybe, even as you've got the red button there, recording the original source,
I just got one idea.
That might be it.
I just want to challenge one idea, okay? So that obviously the typical AI perspective is Terminator and Matrix, and it's cold, it's emotionless, it's ruthless. It doesn't have that compassion as human beings. Well, if all of its knowledge is human, in a sense, its collection of data and the world around it is data we collected for it. Yeah. It has to also have data on human beauty, in a sense, or the good side of human nature.
Yeah.
So there's always room for good there still, surely. You can't just be all negative thanks to cinema. There has to be some...
Nobody's saying it's all negative.
I think as well, for things to be truly curious, they have to be feared first. I think curiosity is born from fear.
Absolutely.
And if you can make society fear AI, the more curious we get about it. And it is actually almost like an underhand, sleight of hand, I think. Because if you was to praise, look how amazing it is. Human nature kind of like to go against things that are held on pedestals. Start off not on a pedestal and watch us elevate it. And we're doing it already. You're seeing loads of TikTokers, Instagrammers, YouTubers speaking of, hey, I could do this, hey, I could do that, hey, I could do this. And what do? Oh, maybe it's not so scary after all. Maybe I might just try it out myself. For now.
Until
I generally
get to a place where the very presupposition of an AI
listen, I know there's people out there
renders you useless.
I'll tell you something though, yeah. I know there's someone out there. I'm gonna put this on TikTok, yeah. I know there's someone out there that's thinking about an apocalyptic AI future and generally thinks they're John Connor. Because I do, 100%. Like if AI went off
you
like
can't be John Connor. I'm John Connor.
No, I'm John Connor.
I'm John Connor. Or
okay,
should we ask?
You could be Neo.
Should we ask the AI?
But yeah, I've done that one. I was like, what do you think Riyad Hacib would be in the future? He goes, I don't have information. I'm like, I haven't made it yet.
Yeah.
I am not on that level just yet.
It's an interesting topic, and it's going to be something that's spoken about because maybe, like you said, maybe it is accepting the fact that could this just be evolution? Could this just be the next strand in evolution?
Have you seen AI art?
Yeah, it's amazing.
I don't want to say that. I don't want to say it's amazing.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
Listen, it's
detail,
breathtaking.
Yeah.
But do you know why I don't like it? Because I'm a strong believer art needs an artist. It needs the soul for art to be real for me. And this is a very metaphysical view.
I was waiting for you to say the word.
Soul. Soul is the most important word, I think.
I wasn't going to say it, but you said it.
Soul.
Something with a soul can't be replicated.
It can't get replicated.
Yeah.
Human nature is too amazing.
I love it. It's pure.
I love human nature.
It's pure. That purity cannot be replicated.
And the most frustrated feeling is for those as well who love human nature and is proud of human accomplishment, that acknowledges we have dark things, but that's not to slander us. It's hard growing up in a world where you're always reminded how immoral we are, how bad we are, how evil humans have been. I'm a strong believer that we should regard humanity by their highest examples, not their lowest examples.
Exactly.
It's just a timer. But yeah.
Exactly. Was that AI giving you the thumbs up?
No, she's just saying I've got to wrap it up.
Oh, I thought it was AI.
But this has been a really interesting episode, guys. We're gonna 100% do a part 2. Because this is Mr. Mckenzie. We'll do a part 2 very soon. Trust me. I know you lot will like this episode. But thank you again for watching. Any last words from you, Mr. Mckenzie, before AI comes for you?
You see the way he ended that before AI comes for me.
I don't say nothing.
It's coming for us
I'm just
all.
setting the stage for you.
It's about preparing ourselves for a new world, and I just sincerely always believe that if we seek pureness in ourselves and others, we will withstand anything the future has to throw at us, and we will, in some weird way, become subjects of lectures in the future for people that live in the now.
That's actually beautifully said. Wow, why would you end it on that? Because that is a whole nother conversation I could talk about with you.
That's why we need part 2.
I love these ideas with talking about future. Like, I really think this generation is going to be studied in schools, and I can't wait.
100%.
But anywho, that's part 2. Anyway, enjoy, guys. Like, subscribe. I'm going to leave all his socials, so that's for the animation effect. Thank you.
Been amazing.